Can you hear that? They're getting closer. It's the boys. Let's hear it for them. I'm Alex.
Hey, I'm Justin, and I hear them.
I'm Pete.
Pete, you hearing those boys?
Pete, you hear the boys.
You hear the boys. Let's hear it for the boys, Pete. Because
Come on, you're young. You're young. You have good hearing. You're part of Gen V.
Yes, we're all part of Gen V here because we're going to be talking about Season 1, Episode 2 of the new Prime Video show, the spinoff of The Boys. The episode is titled First Day, which bothered Pete, I know, because it's actually the second episode.
It's the second day. You know what I mean? Like they already had...
Well, the first day was orientation. The first episode was orientation. They were getting there, getting into their dorms. This is the first official day of classes. So
yeah.
Does that help?
That helps. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. If you haven't seen the episode, it's live now on Prime Video, but go watch it. We're going to talk about spoilers throughout the episode to give you a little bit of a recap. We are picking up on the big cliffhanger of the last episode at Godolkin University, a university for soups. This is the first generation that really knows that they were injected with Compound V. They did not get their powers by God or nature or whatever. It was given to them by their parents who kind of suck. So regardless, maybe this is caused by that or not. We don't know. This seems to be one of the central mysteries of the season. There's something called the Woods at Godolkin University. Messed with the brain somehow of Golden Boy, who was the Golden Boy of the college. He killed the former dean of the college, Brink, and then blew himself up. It affects a bunch of characters a different way. Marie, who has the power of controlling blood, is moving up on the ranks. As we see in this episode, she gets hailed as the guardian of Godolkin. Also, Andre, who was Golden Boy's best friend. He is investigating the mystery of exactly what went on and why Golden Boy killed himself. Finds out a little bit, but not a ton of information here, or at least gets pointed in the right direction. He also kind of misses out on his chance to be one of the guardians of Godolkin, despite the fact that his father, Polarity, who is on the board of the school, is really pushing him very hard in this direction. We've also got Kate, whose power is to push people's minds, to kind of control them, to cause them to do things. She is the former girlfriend of Golden Boy. She's very torn up this episode, making a bunch of good moves there. Tired. We've also got Emma, whose power is to get small. We found out that her power is caused by her throwing up. That's something that comes out this episode when she ostensibly makes a friend at acting class. Unfortunately, the friend betrays her with a video and tells everybody that she binges and that we need to be respectful, and she's pretty pissed off about that. So we ended a very dark place with her. Last but not least, we got Jordan, who is a non-binary character who can switch from appearing male or appearing female, also seems to be invulnerable. Stopped Golden Boy, or at least held Golden Boy back a little bit in the last episode, but is getting none of the credit for it. They're at number 5 on the rankings in the school, and very frustrated about that. And we get a lot of other details and things from the world of the boys. We get an Ashley show up. Bork, played by PJ Byrne, shows up in a very fun cameo as well. He's now teaching in an acting class. That all said, I know I do this a lot at the beginning of shows, but I think it's always good to get to the temperature because we're always very excited or intrigued by the pilot. But now, second episode, in my mind, that's really the proving ground. That's the point when you're like, okay,
it's sort of the first day.
It's the first day. There we go. It's whether the show actually works. So what do you guys think? Pete, given that you were annoyed about the title, did that waylay you the entire time, or did you like this episode?
No, I think this is fun. I think that fun's not the right word. It's gross. There's a lot of gross things going on and way over the top intense things, which is, what kind of the boys' bread and butter, if you will.
Yeah,
but
blood and butter.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough.
I love a dinner roll with a little spread of blood on it.
Do you use your own, or do you get it from your blood boy?
But well, I mean, you run out after a while from both Blood Boy.
We could not.
I call him Hank. His name's Hank, Alex. You've met him.
You call him Hank. That's not his name, but...
Yeah, I don't know his name. He's my blood boy.
Right. As everybody knows from frequent listeners of this podcast, you name your blood boy, whatever his previous...
Can we stop, please? Can we stop?
I like
so.
Hank because it's like thanks. So I always remember thanks, Hanks, for the blood.
That's really
What
beautiful.
is I've seen Airbender. I know that if you control blood, that you're not a good person. You know what I mean? Like that's the dark arts, and so
Pete,
I
why are
have
you talking about another show? It seems unrelated to what we're talking about.
Yeah, can we get back on topic,
Will
please,
you get
Pete?
back
You
on
got
track?
me with a Pete
Get back on
Slam.
topic.
Oh man, taste of my own
Pete
medicine.
Slam.
Taste of
Taste
my
your own
own
blood
medicine.
medicine.
I was just trying to change the topic from blood and
From
But you
Hank.
made a huge mistake in the process.
Huge.
Why don't you go back to talking about what you thought about this episode? It's
Okay,
gross.
I'm
Gross.
trying. I'm
Blood,
trying. Yeah,
something,
it's
something, bread and
gross. It's
butter.
gross.
Yep.
It's gross. Totally gross. Great use of nothing. Nothing matters. That was an unbelievable choice there. But I'm pulling for good to win somehow, but it's it's not looking good. But man,
I think you're watching the wrong television program.
I'm enjoying it, but man,
Well-
I'm very grossed out.
Well, this is not to jump in front of your thoughts, Justin, but this is one of my major takeaways from this episode, which I think Pete is going to have probably a problem with this entire season, is this is much murkier and grayer, I think, than the boys in a certain way. Like, the boys always plays with that line. It's always about, like, Huey pushing on Butcher.
Dewey and Louie.
Yeah, Huey, Louie, and Dewey. Yes, absolutely. It's always about Huey pushing on Butcher and being like, hey, do better. You can't be as bad as these.
Yeah,
so certainly that's something they play with
canary
there.
in the coal
But
mine.
we still know, even if we're like, there's good in the seven and there's bad in the boys, we know which side we're on, even as everybody kind of moves back and forth. Here, we don't know yet. Like, the thing that I thought was really
You're with the
interesting-
Woods? You're on the side of the
I'm
woods?
side of the woods. No, I think, like, in terms of focusing on our main characters, we clearly have Marie as our central character and identifying point, but she makes a bunch of very bad choices.
She also murdered her parents and almost murdered her sister.
You can't blame her for that.
So it's hard to be on her side sometimes, and I'm worried about, like, we're watching like the origin story of maybe one of the worst
We
villains
might
of
be.
all
I
time.
think that's
Okay.
kind
We
of the
might
whole
be.
point, is that who do they grow up to be? Do they grow up to be heroes? Do they grow up to villains? Do they even want to be? Because this entire school is set up as like, this is actually a question I was going to throw out to you guys. Do you think it's a just general star metaphor? Do you think it's a sports specific metaphor? What's happening here?
I think it's both. It's the celebrity side of both of those, I think. But it makes sense the way you're talking about the way the boys is structured, where it goes from like, oh, look, good guys, bad guys. And then it gets murkier as it goes on over the course of any season until it's like pure chaos. And this, I
Just
think
like
we're going
your
to get.
house.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and
Pure
like
chaos.
like you just saw my child run in. You know, when you become a parent, your child can kill you at any time. It's part of the So
That's
like,
a contract.
it's a contract. Yeah. So like that's why whenever my kids walk in the room, I have to be like, okay.
Every morning,
here.
I when I put my kids to bed is what I was going to say.
Oh, Alex has vampire.
Yeah, they have night work. They're blood boys.
Yeah.
So
They're blood boys. They're the original blood boy.
yeah.
What I was saying though
OG
is
blood boys.
they're taking your blood, Alex. I'm getting blood from Hank.
Oh, okay. All right. I gotta.
I hate to tell you, Alex. I hate to tell you,
why not?
Alex. You're their blood boy.
What?
Yeah.
And that's
If you're
what being
not
a
the-
parent is. Thanks for tuning into our parenting podcast. Let's hear it for the boys or girls or non-binary.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
What I was saying though is, while the boys had the simple sort of classic superhero teams metaphor and got murkier on both sides, this is, I think, going to be the flip, where it's murky, but we're going to get toward these kids becoming heroes for the most part. I bet there's going to be a villain in the mix here, but I think it's leading toward. It makes sense because there is this central mystery and sort of a spine for them to follow, not the chunk of spine that you find on the sidewalk when you're underneath Golden Boy's explosion place.
Right.
But I think
yeah.
that
Sometimes
we're gonna
when you're
follow that
walking
path.
and you see a chunk of your old buddy, it really stops you in your tracks and you go the other way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Turn around. I would also say though that like,
Would you pick that up if you saw that? Like if you saw a chunk of your buddy in the sidewalk? would
No.
you- No? You
What do
just
you mean?
you
leave
just
them
You
leave
there?
it there? You'd leave it there for like a pizza rat to eat along with a piece of pizza?
Wow.
Wait, seriously, you wouldn't pick it up? Like go get a tissue or something? Maybe that's what Andre was doing. He was going into Brink's office to get a tissue to pick up the piece of Golden Boy.
Just Alex, piece of advice: I would get something stronger than a tissue if you're picking up a corpse. It's gonna go right through a classic Kleenex. Very thin. You're gonna be like, my hand's covered with. Golden Boy.
This show is basically a bounty commercial, is what's going on.
Yeah.
The only towel strong enough to pick up a chunk of your buddy.
Oh my God. I had something to say, but you assholes really ruined it. No, I think to your point a little bit about the murkiness of the show, it's hard because there are so many things going wrong on so many levels, right? Where this whole system is a lie, the ranking is awful, and you have these people getting caught in horrible ways. I mean, the non-binary character, they had an unbelievable ranking, but because of their power and because of what they can do, which you don't get to choose, it's not as popular. So they kind of it's just awful to see all the failings.
I think that's what they're talking about, is the sort of inherent inequities and flaws in any system. But it's also like, it's all built on this lie that like everyone wants to get on the Seven, this team of heroes, when we know from The Boys that they're all basically messed up, flawed nightmares, many of them sociopathic, or a couple of them sociopathic villains. So
I'd say a lot of them.
There's always this inherent flip here, but I think the point of this is it feels like these characters are rising to the occasion because of this mystery that they want to solve. And that's what this episode is all about, I feel like, is them sort of becoming and getting deeper involved in this, from Kate to Andre. Marie a little bit less, but I feel like she's going to get there.
Well, I think, so to get back to what I was saying about her being the central character, I think what's probably happening here is we're getting a little bit of the refusal of the call type thing going on, where she literally is like, no, I don't want any part of this. I don't know you guys.
I don't want to pose for your selfie. You know what I mean? Like,
well, not even the pose for the selfie, but like the thing where she's telling Andre, I went out with you guys one night. Like, I do not. Yes, Golden Boy rained chunks down on me, but at the same time, I don't need to get involved in your mystery of what happened or anything like that. I'm got a second chance. She gets in the crime fighting program, which is what she wanted. She is a star. She's rising up the ranks. She's positioned to be in the Seven. She obviously gets a huge knockback here when she finds out that her sister doesn't want to see her, or at least that's what she's told. Right before she goes on air with her interview. But a lot of this makes a lot of logical sense from her part. But to your point, Justin, I hope we're going to get some turn over the course of the season where she goes from, leave me out of this thing, to, okay, I got to be a hero in some way. Just the last thing I'm going to say, the thing that was very surprising to me was it seems like Andre is leading that charge, who is not who I would have expected for the first episode or the first half of the episode, but he seems to be our main investigative dude right now, which is interesting. That's all.
It's good. It's your favorite.
Reluctant leader. The problem is, I want a little hope. Like, I know life is very shitty and awful and all the failings of the world and all that kind of stuff. So, when I'm watching a TV show, I want at least a little glimmer of hope, or a little bit of like, hey, these people will hopefully right the ship or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's hard when there isn't that, you know what I mean? And it's we're only 2 episodes in here. So even though it's the first day, but I just think it's one of those things where, give me a little something to root for, somebody to cheer for, because even the reluctant asshole is still a fucking complete douche. You know what I mean? And I love him as an actor.
Andre?
Andre. Sabrina, it was unbelievable. He killed it. He does a great job in this, but it's like, I need a little something to hold on to.
I will say really quickly, it was very funny to see Jazz Sinclair, who plays Marie, and Chance Perdomo, who plays Andre, doing that photo shoot in the middle, because I was like, you did that a million times for Sabrina.
They've been on that before.
Exactly.
That's great acting. Well, Pete, I would also say there's enough hope in here. It's just very tiny sparks, and I think the boys
tiny chunks of hope that are flying through the air.
Exactly, and when you find a tiny chunk of hope, you got to pick it up with a bounty, quicker picker upper, so that you don't get a chunk on your hand.
And now to our commercial break.
But that wasn't it. Yeah. But I think the Marie's path is sort of mirroring Starlight from the Boys show, and they even say like she's the Black Starlight at the end.
Yeah, she's either going to crash and burn, or she'll become the Black Starlight. I'll throw something else out to you that I've been kind of mulling around a little bit while watching the show, and I think it crystallized a bit when we're talking about it here, is the way that college shows, we talked about this before this even launched, but the way that college shows usually go, it's tough when you get a teen show and move it into the college years, or when you start a college show. There's been some very good ones, but they don't last very long because you don't really have those emotional highs, and it's not quite as clear as what's happening, what the arc is as a high school show. I think what they're kind of playing with very effectively in this show is people looking back on what college actually is. And what I mean by that is when you have high school, it's all promise. You're like, what could my life be? It could be absolutely anything. And the way that most college shows play it, and I think the way we kind of feel it at least a little bit, or at least I certainly felt it in college, is that same sort of thing. Like, this is promise. I'm deciding something, but there's the whole world is open for my major if you decide your major, or the whole world, I could do literally anything. And then you get out there in the job force, very different thing, and very different way of hitting it. And I think this is people who have been through that, looking back at that, and you have these characters like, I could be anything. And the people who are writing this who are older are like, nope. No. Some of you are not going to be on the Seven. Some of you are just going to be like acting on Riverdale or acting on like
that was a fun shout out to the Riverdale.
Prize.
Come on,
that was a consolation prize.
You minored in murder.
That
though,
would be
Alex.
peak.
Yeah,
I mean, Riverdale is an unbelievable show. What are we talking about?
I minored in murder with a major in being a blood boy. So yeah.
Wow. Really diversify. Give yourself two paths.
Yeah, I ultimately didn't end up using either, just to be clear.
I think you'll find, as we discover, that you did. What I was going to say is that what I like about this episode, and like you're saying, the pilot is always sort of its own thing, and then the series really begins in the second episode. This episode I thought was much funnier. A lot of great classic boys style, like throwaway joke lines. And it sets its focus and criticism and satire on the media for a lot of this, and the way that like institutions shape the way that people are. And you just have the character like Jeff, who I thought, the guy on the crutches, who I thought was just super funny, like being such a like monster, but doing it in a way where we laugh. And then the person conducting the interview or producing it was her name Courtney Fortney?
I think so.
I was like, yo, that's a big choice.
Yeah, that dialogue was really good. The whole way that she was delivering the thing, like, we're kind of product testing Guardians of Godolkin. Even as I'm saying it, it sounds like there's too many syllables. Like all of that stuff, it sounded like PR folks, and it was very good. I also, on the same note, I know I mentioned this earlier, love PJ Bird. Great to see him as the whole scene in the acting class where he hated it
that was
so much. Was great, but the line towards the beginning, which I didn't write down, but the thing where he's like, I know you're all feeling this tragedy right now, and you're feeling like, this is inappropriate and we shouldn't be doing this. You're wrong. This is when the artists are most important. And that's what they do, man. They come out and they say,
they do that. And that's like the sort of the density of the writing here. It's like him being a dick, but saying something that's, sort of vaguely true that you could hear in an acting class potentially. Then you have somebody saying that he showed his dick to Minka Kelly, and that's why he's stuck at being a professor. Then he's like, how did I get here? And sort of a joke, but also this guy's on his last legs. And then he says, bring the funk, not the junk. Which I was like, what a roller coaster ride of truly like 60 seconds of a scene was just like 4 jokes, wins, losses all over the place. It's just I love the writing in this show.
But what's also tough is like we get to see Ashley and the acting teacher who we remember from the thing, and we're like, oh great, I know these guys. But then it's like, oh yeah, they're awful too, and it's like,
what are you looking for a hero here, Pete?
I'm searching for
holding out. Would you say for a hero?
Yeah,
exactly. But
I'm going to send you to some old, like late 1930s Superman cartoons. That might be more your speed right now.
All right, great. I would like to say though, the use of the Jumanji joke, the setup and execution,
I knew you were gonna love that.
And then later you hear him yell Jumanji, like, oh, that was magic.
That was
as soon as they set that up, I was like, Oh, we're gonna hear Jumanji later. That's just when you know
They
a good setup.
they shot that
But they
perfectly too.
perfect, yeah.
For anybody who forgot what happened in this episode, so you got this douche character who is making fun of Kate at the memorial or whatever it is for Brink and Golden Boy, kind of making fun of Golden Boy a little bit. She's not quite sure what she hears, and ultimately he's wearing basically I couldn't read it, but it's clearly like a MAGA hat but for superhero stuff, like it's the red and white hat. And then she pushes him and she's like, hey, you're going to get fined a big baseball bat and hit yourself in the nuts every hour on the hour and yell Jumanji. And like we're talking about, like the way they filmed that, it was just, you don't even see him in the shot until the very end. And he's all the way in the back and walks in and hits himself in the nuts. Perfect nut shot.
Yells Jumanji.
Perfect shot, perfect nut shot.
That's what I call a perfect.
Can we
shot.
talk about some of the
Whenever-
more serious storylines though? Like Emma's in particular, she's going through it this episode. I felt so bad for her.
Well, it seems like her role here is like she started off sort of like fine, but she's really slipped down into just bad things happening over and over again for her. And you hate to see it, but like she's setting up to be part of the team, I think, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other thing that was nicely done about this, we talked a little bit about how they're playing off of issue-driven storylines on this show in a very specific way. And despite the fact that the first episode was like, yeah, she throws up, but it's not binging and purging or anything like that. This episode was like, no, it is though. Like whatever she's saying about it, at the end, she throws up because she feels bad. So clearly there's some deep psychological stuff going on there. And same thing with Marie and the self-harm. Yeah. Where
we get that montage at the end where they sort of put it all right next to each other.
Yeah,
to just
I was
be
so
very
worried.
clear
that
everyone's using their powers to hurt themselves.
Which I think you got to do. Like, you got to dive into that metaphor and you got to really deal with this stuff and then figure out, to be clear, if there are people who binge or purge, if they have disordered eating or if they self-harm, there's not necessarily like a quick fix or an easy fix. And I don't imagine the show will be like, and they're cured, the end. That's not what happens and that's not what should happen. But to deal with that as an ongoing thing and figure out responsible ways of doing it, well, you still have chunks of people flying out and crotches getting ripped open so you can find secret phones and things like that. That's great. Like, that's a great place for a superhero show to live. And I'm excited about it, even if it's kind of tearing my heart out.
I'm a little worried about it because it is such a, it's a huge topic. And, I don't want it to be a punchline or a joke or a thing, so I'm just worried about how it's going to all go down in because this is such a dark place. The woods is awful. There's so many triggering awful things in the show. So I'm worried about walking that tightrope. You know what I mean?
Well, what I like about this show is that I think it's very much not using it as a punchline. A lot of other times things like this are referenced, specifically like characters cutting themselves. It is a very one note. You just see it, and it's sort of a shorthand to be like
later. Yeah,
this person, or it's just like it's just their whole character is that. And I think the point here is like whatever has brought these characters to their individual places where they're harming themselves took a long time to get there. It's a like deep-seated trauma and difficulties they've had for a long time. And they're not just going to turn around and walk right out of it because they have a win here. It's going to take, the time to walk back away from that choice and that the way that they're treating themselves. So I think that's a really smart way of doing it.
And I'd point out as an example of something that worked well over in The Boys, the sexual assault of Starlight, which was not dealt with well in the comic book, but something that they treated the way that it should be treated beyond the first episode with Starlight and really delved into it and have never forgotten about it. We've talked a lot about how the Deep, hilarious how he keeps getting knocked down a peg, but he's never really had a redemption arc, and neither should he. So I think they're aware of this stuff. So I feel like, not to get into lingo or anything, but I feel like the franchise has built up enough goodwill at this point for me to follow them on this journey and see how they deal with it. And if they can't deal with it in a deep way for these characters, I think that's going to be really interesting.
I mean, I didn't like the way you used the deep there, but other than that, I hope you're right.
What do we think about the moment where Marie makes the choice that she does, where she chooses to take credit for that? Like, it really builds
that was
up.
tough. But you understood what was going on. Like, she got her bell rung with that blonde lady, talking about her family and everything, and like that whole kind of realization that like the sister doesn't want anything to do with her. And I think they're doing a good job with that. Like, they're not just going to kind of make it like, oh yeah, she forgives you and everything's great, because I feel like, if your sibling murdered your parents, it would be a tough thing to get over. So I'm glad that they're kind of dealing it with that. And I'm hoping that, the sisters can find a nice way to kind of get back together, or at least as
I get over it. If my brother murdered my parents, I feel like I get over it.
You were like, oh, I get it, dude.
Yeah.
They were pretty annoying.
Yeah, it's all right.
You're like,
It's
you
cool.
go to bed at 8.
Kapoor, blood powers. You go to bed at 8. The worst thing a parent can say.
That's a pretty decent bedtime.
Yeah, just to talk a little.
Look at you, you're outside of big parents over there.
Yeah, that's right.
Just to talk a little bit more about this storyline. So this is part of a bigger thing where now that Brink is out of the way, we got this new Dean who is stepping up, who has a lot of interest in Marie and seems to be trying to mentor her in some way. But she also, very clearly, we get to see the woods this episode. We get to see the big revelation as we find out that the kid is Sam, who is in there. Who is
Golden Boy's brother, right?
Golden Boy's brother, who is supposed to be dead.
Yes, exactly. So she knows a lot of stuff. Ashley also knows a lot of stuff, as we find out in the phone call at the beginning. So there's a lot of murky secret stuff going on here. And definitely with the look that she gives at the end when Marie confronts her and says, did you know about my sister? And she says, no, I didn't. They embrace, and then we can see the Dean's face, and it's clear, yes, she did know. So she's manipulating Marie and using her in some way. To what end? We don't necessarily know yet. But interesting stuff going on there, I think, dramatically. Yes, Pete.
Dramatically, yeah.
I had a question. Did you guys think it was a little much to have the kind of like secret be in the cock part of the statue? You know what I mean? When you open up the cock of the statue, to get the secret kind of info. I felt like, the foot would have been fine, or you know what I mean? Like,
well, there's a long tradition of pirates hiding gold in the cock.
Oh, well, see, I didn't know
so
that.
I think that's
that's the job of the coxswain.
Yep.
Yeah. Pete?
Why are you mad about it, Pete? You brought it up.
I just felt
Jumanji.
I don't know how Golden Boy. I wanted something a little more out of that, to be honest. Like the idea that Golden Boy somehow
opened up the cock of his statue,
taped a thing on his cell phone. Yeah, opened up the crotch, put the phone in there, closed up the crotch so it looked perfect. Yeah. And then they open it up and take it out, and he's like, bad things in the woods, see you later. And that was pretty much the whole of the message.
It wasn't that big of a deal message. Right. There were other ways to hide that message. But I gotta say, if Golden Boys had flame powers, basically, I mean, it makes sense. The crotch would have been the easiest spot on the statue for him to melt and then reform.
The easiest spot?
It looked. I think so. It's just sort of
the head,
like a bump.
You know what I mean? Like
with a head, you can't re-sculpt the face. With the crotch, you're just making it.
I kind of agree with Pete about the foot, though. I guess you could have destabilized the statue then. Doing it in the crotch, that's right in the middle. That's the best sense of balance. So even if you melt it a little bit, the top's not going to fall down. The bottom's not going to fall down. That's why the crotch.
I just feel like once you open a crotch, it's hard to put it back together. You know what I mean?
Put that on a bumper sticker.
Yeah, that might as well go on your tombstone, dog.
That's not what I want on my tombstone.
It's not? No. Okay, well, too late. I already called the guy. We have a shared grave.
Shared plot?
No, shared grave. I said it. I meant it when I said shared grave.
Yeah, dump those guys in together.
Stack them.
They're the first trio that died of simultaneous podcast. It's really sad.
Wow. It died at the same time in 3 separate areas. Amazing. Got to shout out Thimble Dick, nickname unlocked there. Really nice. I like the henchman bit of like, hey, Bob, I'm Greg. Very funny.
yeah,
Like
that-
just a goofy joke.
Yeah.
Very great. The Siegfried and Roy mix up that we get in there. Just a lot of great jokes.
Two things that I'll shout out that I thought were good. One, I love the no looky lose sign that has Black Noir going, that's throughout the secret parts of the campus. Very fun. And the ending I thought was interesting as well. Like we talked about,
Yes.
Andre is investigating, but Kate comes and saves him. And immediately she's pushed her powers too far and seems to go into a seizure. Another good cliffhanger here. Definitely the sort of thing I'm like, yes, I 100% want to watch the next episode and see what happens. I am clearly invested in these characters.
But I was like, you don't have to give such weird details when you're using your powers. If you could do something a little shorter and not so sexual, it might, helps. I was just like,
look at Teacher Pete, Professor Pete over here.
It's like you don't have to.
Sometimes that's just the first thing that comes into your brain in an extreme situation. People.
Yeah,
right.
You
Turn
want
your
someone
flashlight into a cock and then suck that cock, and then there you go.
There was more to that, Alex, but I'll let you. We'll say that offline.
Cool, man. Any other notes for the episode before we start to wrap up here?
Big
win.
The kind of mentor, like that hug, and like seeing her make like such a supervillain face on the side was just so unsettling. Like great use of a creepy hug is my point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up here, though, let's talk about who was best boy. Who was best boy in this episode? Justin, you got an answer there?
I got to give it up to Kate. I really thought she was great in this episode. Definitely, I didn't expect her to become sort of a part of the good guy team in such a big way. We'll see. I don't know if that she'll continue given what happened to her at the end of the episode, but I thought she was great. Great last minute resurgence. She was just clutch, all up.
Pete, what about you?
I'm gonna have to say Emma. I'm a little worried about her story, and she's taken a lot of L's, but I'm hoping she's gonna get some W's going.
I'm going to give it up to Andre in this episode. I think he's...
Of course.
Andre 3000 or the
course.
Andre in the...
Andre in the episode.
Okay. That makes sense.
I mean, in general,
that makes
Andre,
that makes
3000. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Andre in the episode, he's the one who makes the right decisions, ultimately. He's feeling very uncomfortable and not sure, but he starts to investigate. He turns away from the promotional opportunity, investigates Brink's office. He makes the moves to go find out what's going on in the woods. He's taking some bold, rash choices, but at least... to the point, to the thing that you're concerned about, Pete, he's acting like a hero, unlike anybody else. So we'll see. We'll see if he inspires the rest of the gang. And we'll see if we inspire you to support us at patreon.com/comicbookclub. Also, we do a live show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. To Facebook and YouTube, come hang out. We would love to chat with you about the boys. Apple, Android, Spotify, or the app of your choice to subscribe, listen, and follow the show at Comic Book Live. On Twitter/X, Comic Book Club Live, on Instagram and TikTok, comicbookclublive.com for this podcast and many more. Until next time, the boys, I hear them coming. Oh Lord, the boys.
Hey, Hank, yeah, I need a pint. Load it up, Blood Boy.